her skin peeled away like cloth, and there, before Fred, stood a massive serpent.
A long time ago, there was a village called Umudim. It was a quiet place with tall trees, green farms, and sweet-smelling wind. Birds sang every morning, and the river made soft sounds like music. The people of Umudim were kind and strong. They loved to tell stories. They loved to dance and sing. They believed in spirits and old magic. So on this fateful day, the village was full of joy. It was the New Yam Festival. This was the biggest celebration of the year. It was a day to thank the gods for food and life. Drums were beating, people were singing, children ran around with white chalk on their faces. Women wore colorful clothes and big beads. Men roasted yam and meat on fire. The smell of food filled the air. Elders sat under a tree, drinking palm wine and laughing. Everyone was happy. But far away, near the forest, something was watching. Something with shining eyes. A young, beautiful lady walked into the village square. No one had ever seen her before. She was tall, with smooth brown skin, and a smile like morning sunshine. Her eyes sparkled. But the most magical thing about her was her hair, a thick golden afro that glowed under the sun. It bounced as she walked. The women stared in silence. The men could not breathe. Even the village chief, an old man with 4 wives, licked his lips and smiled at her. "Who is she?" the people whispered. "I think she is from Oba village," someone said. "No. Maybe from the hills of Umunze," another replied. "Her name is Destiny." But no one knew her name. No one knew her people. Later that evening, the girl returned, this time with a basket full of fruits. She walked through the market slowly, her waist moving like water. She had fresh oranges, sweet bananas, and big red watermelon. Her voice was soft like music when she says, "Buy your fruits here, sweet and fresh. Taste the joy of the gods." People rushed to buy. Men bought with 2 hands, even the married ones. She smiled and touched their hands gently. They blushed like small children. The women began to whisper, "That girl is too beautiful. It's not normal." But the men said, "You are jealous. Leave her alone." Every market day that she came, more men followed her. But no one saw where she came from. No one knew where she slept. When the sun set, she disappeared into the village paths like smoke. One day, an old blind woman sat under a big iroko tree. Her eyes were white like chalk, but her ears were sharp. She lifted her head slowly as the girl passed by. Then she spoke in a low voice. "She has come again." A small boy beside her asked, "Mama, who?" The old woman touched the ground and said, "The girl with the shining hair. This is not the first time she has walked these roads. I remember her scent. I remember the cries that followed her. She is not new, and she is not one of us." The boy shivered, "But she is beautiful." The old woman nodded slowly, her face dark. "That's how she catches them." The next day, the sun rose over Umudim. Birds sang in the trees. Children played near the stream. Everything seemed normal. But something was not right. The first sign came from Obina, a young farmer. Everyone knew Obina. He was strong, kind, and hard-working. His yam farm was the biggest in the village. People said he would become the richest man in Umudim. But one morning, Obina ran into the village square, crying like a baby. "My farm is gone," he shouted. "All my yams are rotten. The ground is black like coal." People followed him to the farm, and it was true.
The once green land was now dry and dark. The yams had holes, flies were everywhere. The soil was cold. "God, what is this?" someone asked. "Maybe it's a curse," one woman whispered, "or something evil in the air." But that was not the end. The next morning, Obina woke up and he couldn't see. His eyes were open, but everything was dark. Obina became blind from that day. And just 3 days later, the second sign came. Chuka, a rich trader who always wore white, had just returned from the city. He was happy and full of life, but he could not stop staring at Destiny. On market day, he bought all her fruits. That night, he followed her behind the palm trees. The next morning, Chuka stood in the middle of the village square, shaking, sweating, and whispering things no one could understand. He said, "I saw her skin, her tongue. She's evil." Then he fell flat on the ground and died. His family called the native doctor, but nothing worked. The villagers started talking. 2 great men down in 1 week? Something is wrong in Umudim. Let's offer a goat to the gods. But while they blamed the spirits and bad luck, one man kept watching. Fred, the hunter. He sat near the big tree at the edge of the market, sharpening his knife. His eyes followed Destiny as she walked past with her shiny afro and smooth legs. She smiled at everyone. Her basket was full again, but Fred did not smile. Destiny turned her head and looked in Fred's direction. Their eyes met for 1 short second. Then she smiled, but Fred didn't blink.
Later that night, Fred sat beside his small fire, sharpening his knife. His hut was close to the forest. Wild animals howled far away, but Fred was not afraid. That forest was where he hunted. That was where he found peace. But tonight, something felt wrong. As the fire cracked, the wind blew gently. His heart began to beat faster. He kept thinking about Destiny. "Who is this strange girl?" he whispered to himself. Then he remembered a dream he had a long time ago. He had seen the same woman in the forest. Her skin was shining like the moon. She turned slowly, and her body changed. Her face became long. Her eyes glowed yellow. Her skin turned to scales. And then she became a snake. A big, glowing snake. She hissed at him, and he woke up in fear. Fred looked into the fire. His hands shook a little. "So it's her. It's Destiny," he whispered. "She is hiding something." Then he picked up his spear. "I must find out the truth."
The next morning, the sun was high over Umudim. It was market day again. Women shouted as they sold pepper, yam, and palm oil. Drums played softly in the distance. The air smelled of roasted corn and fresh fruits. And then, like always, she came. Destiny. Her basket sat on her hip, full of bright oranges and red watermelon slices. Her thick afro bounced as she walked. Her smile was sweet, and her steps were slow, like a queen on a secret mission. Men followed her with their eyes. Some dropped coins without even asking for fruit. But this time, she walked straight to Fred. He was sitting under the big iroko tree, sharpening his spear, just like always. He wore no shirt, only a wrapper tied around his waist. His dark muscles glistened with sweat. Destiny stopped in front of him. "Strong hunter," she said softly, her voice smooth like honey. "Take this. It is sweet, just like you." She held out a round, juicy orange. Fred didn't look up. He didn't smile. "I don't eat from strangers," he said. Destiny tilted her head. "Stranger? But I have been in this village for many moons." Fred stood up slowly. His eyes were sharp. "Then where do you sleep at night?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Destiny smiled wider. "A woman must keep some things secret." Fred took one step closer and looked into her eyes. "Whatever you are, stay away from me." The market became quiet for a moment. Destiny laughed gently and placed the orange on a stone. "Very well, hunter, but don't say I never offered you sweetness." She turned and walked away, hips swaying, men still staring. But Fred's eyes stayed cold. He picked up the orange and threw it far into the bush. That night the wind was loud. The moon was full. Fred sat in his hut, cleaning his arrows, when he heard a sound outside. Shh, shh, like something heavy dragging across the ground. He stood up slowly, picked up his spear, and stepped outside. It was very quiet that night. Then he saw it. Something long and dark slithering near his hut, moving toward the back of the house. A snake, a very big one. Its body was thick like a drum. Its scales shimmered under the moonlight. Fred raised his spear to strike, but the snake had already vanished into the trees. He did not sleep that night. He just sat by the fire, waiting.
The next market day came. Something strange was happening in Umudim. Men were going missing. It started with Chuka, the rich trader. He was last seen smiling beside Destiny at the market. That night he followed her down the narrow path behind the palm trees. The next morning, he was gone. His family searched for him. They called his name in the forest. They asked the native doctor. Nothing. No body. No footprints. Just silence. A few days later, Ebuka, the drummer, disappeared too. He had always loved to sing and play his talking drum. But after Destiny smiled at him and touched his shoulder, he was never seen again. One by one, more men vanished, young, strong, and full of potential. At first, people thought they had traveled or run away, but their goats were still at home. Their money was untouched, their sandals were by the door. "This is not normal," the villagers whispered. "Maybe a spirit is taking them." But no one said Destiny's name. Only Fred was watching closely. He remembered the night the giant snake came near his hut. He remembered how Destiny smiled after he rejected her fruit. So he started walking around the village at night, alone. He looked at the paths where the missing men were last seen. He saw the same thing again and again. Snake tracks, deep, wide lines on the ground, as if something very heavy had crawled by. The tracks always led to the same place, the dark part of the forest. Fred's heart grew cold. He said to himself, "Destiny is the one doing this. She takes them into the forest." Then, one afternoon, as the sun burned hot, a man stumbled into the village. His clothes were torn, his hair was wild, his feet were covered in dust. He fell to the ground near the market square, shouting, "She's not human! Don't touch her! Don't look in her eyes!" People gathered around, shocked and scared. "Who are you?" someone asked.
The man shook his head and cried, "I come from Umunse village. She was there years ago, looking the same. Pretty face, sweet voice. Men followed her, and they vanished." He grabbed the ground and shouted again, "She has no home. She has no soul. She lives in the forest and drinks their future." The villagers gasped. But before anyone could ask more, the man fell and died. Some people ran away. Others were silent, afraid. But Fred, he looked at Destiny standing far away with her basket of fruit, and she looked back at him.
The following morning, Fred made up his mind. He could no longer sit and watch men die and disappear. He could no longer pretend. He knew who Destiny was, and he knew where she came from. But to fight her, he needed answers. He needed power. He needed to go where no one dared to go. So one morning, just before sunrise, Fred picked up his spear and left the village. He walked deep into the forest, past the tall iroko trees, past the thick bushes, past the land where hunters feared to step. He walked until he found it, a place his father once told him about when he was still a boy. The shrine of the first hunters. It was hidden under a giant tree, its roots wide like the arms of a giant. The shrine was old. Broken pots lay on the ground. The air was thick with dust and silence. Fred stood before the entrance and spoke loudly. "Great ones of the forest, I need your help." Nothing moved. Then a voice, soft, dry, old. "Why have you come, son of the soil?" Fred turned. An old woman was standing there. Her skin was wrinkled like dry leaves. Her eyes were sharp, glowing faintly like fireflies. Her voice sounded like the wind. She was the priestess of the shrine. Fred bowed his head. "There is a woman in the village. Her name is Destiny, but she is not a woman. She is a snake. She takes the lives of good men." The priestess nodded slowly. "I know her. I knew her before she had a name. She walks like a woman, but she was not born like one." Fred stepped closer. "Then how can I stop her?" The priestess looked at the tree and whispered, "She is not just a snake. She is cursed. Long ago she was a daughter of the water spirits, but she broke a rule. She fell in love with a man, and so they cursed her." Fred's eyes widened. "What curse?" The priestess looked into his eyes. "She must feed on the destiny of men to live. That is her punishment. But if you kill her—" She paused. "You will pay a price." Fred's hands shook slightly. "What kind of price?" The priestess reached into her cloth and brought out a small leather charm, tied with red string and a cowrie shell. "Take this. It will protect you when the forest speaks." She placed it in Fred's hand. Then she said in a quiet voice, "Her end will come, but it will cost you something too." Fred looked down at the charm. Then he looked at the sky. The wind blew harder. Something was coming.
Late that night, the moon was round and bright, sitting in the sky like a watchful eye. It was the night after market day, and the village of Umudim was quiet. Chickens had gone to sleep. Fire lamps flickered inside small huts. But Fred was not sleeping. He was hiding behind a tree, close to the market path. He was waiting. And then he saw her, Destiny. She walked slowly, her basket empty, her long hair shining in the moonlight. She was barefoot, but the ground made no sound as she passed. Fred followed her quietly, stepping like a leopard, not too close, not too far. She did not look back. She walked past the farms and the big iroko trees with owl nests. She went deeper and deeper into the forest. Fred's heart beat fast, but he didn't stop. Then she finally reached it, a sacred tree older than the village itself. It stood tall and wide, with marks on its bark and animal bones scattered around its roots. The wind around it felt cold and strange. Destiny stood still. Then she raised her hands to the moon. Fred watched from the bushes, holding his breath. Suddenly, her skin began to glow. Her legs twisted, her arms stretched, her neck grew longer. Her beautiful face began to change. Her eyes turned yellow, her tongue became long and thin. Her skin peeled away like cloth, and there, before Fred, stood a massive serpent, glowing, hissing, and breathing heavily. She was as long as a tree and as thick as a drum. Her scales shone like stars. She moved slowly, circling the tree. Fred's hands began to shake, but before he could move, something else appeared. From behind the sacred tree, a dark figure stepped forward. It did not walk, it floated like mist. It wore a long black cloth, and its face was hidden under a hood. The snake bowed her head low, and then the dark figure spoke. "You have done well, my daughter. The more you feed, the stronger you become. Soon your full power will return." Fred's eyes widened. She was not alone. She was being helped. Destiny raised her giant head and hissed. "One man resists me, the hunter. He knows the truth." The spirit figure turned its hood toward the trees, towards Fred's direction. Fred quickly bent low, holding his breath. The wind stopped. The forest went silent. For a moment, Fred felt like something was staring into his soul. Then the spirit said, "His time will come." Fred crawled back slowly, sweat pouring down his face. He had seen enough, but now he knew. She was growing stronger, and the dark figure wanted her to win.
The next morning, Fred rushed into the village square. His eyes were wide. His hands were shaking. He had just seen a monster. He had seen Destiny turn into a snake. He had seen her speaking to a spirit in the forest. He had to tell the elders. He had to stop her. Fred ran straight to the palace, where the village chief and the council of elders sat under the iroko tree. They were drinking palm wine and talking about the missing men. Fred bowed quickly and shouted, "I know what's happening. It's Destiny. She is not human." The elders turned and stared. The chief frowned. "Fred, what are you saying?" Fred stepped forward. "She is a serpent. I followed her into the forest last night. I saw her change near the sacred tree. She is the one taking the men." The oldest elder coughed. "You saw her change?" "Yes," Fred shouted. "She's feeding on their destinies. A spirit is helping her grow stronger." The palace went silent. Then laughter. One man clapped. Another one shook his head. A young elder stood up and said, "Maybe the hunter is jealous. He wants her for himself." The others nodded. Another man added, "Why would a woman so beautiful be a snake? It is you who sounds mad." Fred's face turned red. "I am telling the truth." But the chief raised his hand. His voice was strong. "Enough! You bring fear and confusion to this village.
If you keep spreading these lies, we will send you away." Fred stood still. He had risked his life. He had spoken the truth, but no one believed him. Just then, the palace gate opened, and Destiny walked in. She wore a long, flowing red wrapper. Her afro was tied with golden beads. Her neck was covered in shiny shells. Her smile was soft and sweet. "Good evening, my elders," she said gently, bowing low. The elders smiled. Even the chief nodded in joy. Destiny looked at Fred and tilted her head. "Is something wrong, great hunter?" Fred stared at her. His fists were tight, but the chief waved his hand. "Go home, Fred. Rest your mind." Destiny turned, her waist moving like water, and walked into the palace. Fred stood outside, alone. No one listened to him. He knew what she really was, and he also knew she was not done yet.
Late that evening, the rain fell gently on the rooftops of Umudim. Fred sat by the fire, sharpening his knife, his mind heavy with worry. It had been 2 days since anyone had seen Jackson, his childhood friend. Jackson had disappeared just like the other men. He had once told Fred, "Some women shine like the moon, but not all moonlight is safe." Now he was gone. No goodbye, no signs, just vanished. Fred's heart burned with anger. "Destiny has taken him too, my very good friend," he cried softly. He stood up, picked his hunting bag, and tied the charm from the shrine priestess around his neck. "Tonight it ends," he said. But just as he reached for his spear, something caught his eye near his mat. It shimmered in the firelight. Fred bent down slowly. It was a snake scale, large, green, and still wet, as if it had just been shed. It was sitting inside his hut, close to his bed. Fred froze. "She's been here." He looked around. His heart pounded fast. "She knows I'm coming." He held the scale tightly. It was still warm. That meant she was close, waiting. A loud thunder cracked outside. Fred quickly tied a red cloth around his forehead. He painted 2 dark lines on his face using ash. He whispered a short prayer to the spirits of his ancestors, then grabbed his knife and spear. "Jackson, I will not let her keep you." He stepped out into the cold night, walking fast through the muddy paths, heading toward the deep forest. The trees danced under the moonlight. The wind carried strange whispers. Somewhere in the distance, an owl cried. And somewhere deep in the forest, something was waiting. Fred did not stop. He did not look back. He was ready to face the monster, even if it meant he would not return. But Destiny was not afraid either. She had already chosen her next sacrifice.
The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Fred moved through the tall trees, his eyes sharp, his heart beating like a drum. The moon above was full and bright, shining like a giant eye in the sky. Leaves crunched under his feet. The charm from the old shrine priestess hung tightly around his neck, glowing faintly in the dark. Suddenly, he stopped. There, near the sacred tree where the forest meets the hill, she was waiting. Destiny. But she no longer looked like the sweet fruit seller from the market. Her body shimmered in the moonlight, the top half still a beautiful woman, but her lower half was now a long, thick, green serpent. Her eyes glowed red. Her long black hair floated in the wind. Fangs slid from her mouth like knives. Fred pointed his knife at her. "Where is Jackson?" he shouted. "Where are the others you took?" Destiny didn't move. She just stared at him, eyes filled with pain. Then she laughed, a sharp, cold laugh that made the leaves tremble. "You're so brave, Fred. You think you're the first to try and stop me?" Fred stood his ground. "I'm not afraid of you." The wind grew stronger. Thunder rumbled. Destiny rose higher, her snake tail wrapping around the sacred tree. Suddenly, with a loud hiss, she struck at Fred, knocking him back. He rolled on the ground and quickly stood up, bleeding from his arm. The charm on his neck glowed brighter. Fred reached for his bow and aimed an arrow at her heart. But just before he let go, Destiny screamed, "I didn't choose this." Fred froze. Tears rolled down her glowing cheeks. "They cursed me, the gods, the men who took my body and left me for dead. I begged for mercy. The forest gave me power, but with it came the hunger." Fred's hand shook. "You were cursed?" he asked. Destiny's body trembled. "I only feed because I must. If I don't, the curse eats me from the inside." The forest went silent again. Fred's arrow was still pointed at her chest, but now he didn't know what to do. Was she a monster or a victim? What if killing her doesn't end the curse? He thought. What if it makes things worse? Behind him, the wind whispered. The spirits were watching, and Fred had a choice to make, a choice that could save the village or destroy it forever. If you enjoy this story, make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell. Part 2 will shock you. Don't miss it.